You are listening to an episode of Megan is Not a Parent, But. Today's episode is brought to you by Positive Parenting ClassPass, 6 simple positive parenting classes to kickstart your positive parenting journey. You can start today at bekindcoaching.com/ClassPass. In today's episode, we will be chatting about what the freeze trauma response looks like and feels like in adaptive and maladaptive ways. So I invite you to get cozy, grab your notebook, and let's dig in. Welcome to Megan is Not a Parent, But, the podcast where I, your host, Megan Ford, former early childhood educator turned positive parenting coach, helps parents just like you learn how to deal with your strong-willed child's difficult behavior. I've been described from my clients as a blend between Brene Brown and Miss Frizzle, you know, the one from the Magic School Bus. I help bring awareness and hold space for the hard conversations and make big concepts like behavior and relationships and temperaments easy to understand and easy to implement. If you're a parent who struggles with your child's loud, dramatic, disruptive, over-the-top behavior, but don't think a parenting coach would help you because those are just for the bad parents or those parents, then this episode is especially for you. I invite you to grab a journal, cozy blanket, a warm beverage, and enjoy what you're about to explore. Just as I am in this entire series, I'm offering this disclaimer that I am a parenting coach. I help teach parents positive parenting tools and help support them in implementing using them. This information in this series is for education and entertainment. It is not a substitution for professional mental health support. So if you are feeling some insights and some pings are coming up and inviting you, I highly encourage you to find spaces of support that can help you navigating and supporting you in this work. We are starting here, episode 3 out of this 4-part series. We are starting here just as we have before by reminding ourselves that we are perfectly designed to survive. Survival is our brain's main focus. When we find a threat, we can start to learn from those threats so that our brains can make assumptions of those threats out in the wild. We've been using the metaphor of seeing a tiger, connecting to a tiger, and then how we then can spot the tiger out in the wild. These are adaptive strategies. Our brain is wired to do that to keep us alive in helpful ways. And when things are left unchecked and we're unaware of that, then they can slide into becoming maladaptive so that our brain starts making these assumptions on things that kind of look like a tiger or kind of look like a threat or kind of remind us of a threat, when in reality, it is just but a simple kitty cat. Not that you should not be scared of it, but let's tune into why are we scared of it and is it a real threat? One might argue if you have allergies, then a cat is a threat. But for most of us who do not suffer from cat allergies, then it is not. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to dig into, are we showing up in ways with real threats, or are we pinging up those defenses when we are not in presence of a real threat? So when our brain is perceiving that threat, that's what we were talking about just before, it activates those defense responses, right? We kick in, we go on high alert, we start to get very tuned into our environment. And this is important in the work that we do here and on this podcast and in every single class that I teach, because my goal is to help parents remove fear-based punishments. And punishments inflict pain. That's what they're designed to do. Pain initiates a defense, and fear-based punishments elicit defenses. We then start acting in resistance, doing the thing that is creating the outcome. So those defenses are adaptive when in the presence of a threat, and they become maladaptive when we perceive the threat that's not there. Throughout this series, we've been working through this model of how the nervous system responds to trauma. The first question we ask is, can I escape? If the answer is yes, then we go into flight. We run away. We fly away from the threat. If it is a no, then we go into asking, can I overpower? If the answer is yes, then we go into fight. If the answer is no, then we move into, will it lose interest? Meaning if we're in the presence of a threat, we can't run from it, we can't overpower it, then we shift into, will it lose interest? And that engages us into the freeze response, which we're going to be digging into today. Part of this work is, again, knowing that our brains are processing from bottom up. We ask, are we safe? We ask, are we loved? And then we ask, what are we learning? Using that hand model of the brain from Dan Siegel, working towards establishing not only physical safety, but emotional safety so that we can get ourselves back online into our language logic brain. When we're navigating through understanding stress and seeing stress and experiencing stress, we can start to become aware of our own stress responses in our own bodies. Our body is telling us that something is going on, and we can start to observe this stress response in those around us. So we're talking about the physiological stress responses. We're looking at if the pupils are dilating, and they dilate so that they can take in more light, so they're more alert. We're also tuning in with our hearing. Are we more sensitive to sound? We become sensitive to sound, so our hearing is focused, so it's interpreting threats. It's on the lookout. It's tuned up so that we don't miss something. We can also start to observe our heart beating faster. A big one, especially as a teacher, is mouth breathing. Knowing that mouth breathing signifies to our body that we are in threat. Think about when you're outside running. I think like the number one thing that I remember when I was going through running training is like, learn how to breathe when you run. I think every new beginner to running is a mouth breather, right? We start to get out of breath so quickly, and we start being in resistance with ourselves because that's activating our body into that stress response. And so it takes a lot of time and practice and patience to become a calm, like in control breather while running. I remember being on the treadmill, forcing myself, like holding my mouth shut, coaching myself, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Even just thinking about that was activating. Mouth breathing, I also want to like bring in the awareness of mouth breathing when allergies are happening, when we start to snore and we lose sleep. We can also experience our muscles tensing and our stomach fluttering as our digestion stops. We can also notice our mind racing, our pain perception is reduced, and the cortisol and adrenaline are pumped throughout our bodies. Again, these are all the physiological stress responses that we can observe in ourselves and others to clue in, like, hey, someone's on alert, something's going on here. We, like I said, are in part 3 of this series. So episode 5.14 is talking through the fight response. Episode 5.15 is talking about the flight response. And here we are today to dig into the freeze. So freeze types protect themselves from the threats through disassociation. We just become disconnected from it. Again, if it can lose interest in us, and if we lose interest in it, then it's no longer a threat. So when we are engaged in a freeze response, when there is a threat, it has adaptive processes. It unconsciously detaches us from that threat. In those moments, we can become immobilized. This is where we just stand still. And I think about Jurassic Park, when you think about the T-Rexes, they can't see you. When the T-Rex comes up, they're in the car and they're just like standing so still because they're trying to not make movements, to not be detected, so that the T-Rex loses interest and go find something else. We also freeze in hopes of becoming camouflaged, right? This reminds me of when we're playing hide and seek and you're hiding and you're like, if I don't make a noise, if I just am so quiet, then they won't find me. So it has adaptive processes. We're trying to blend in, thinking about camouflaged when we're in spaces with other people. Like, how do we become camouflaged in that space if we're interpreting or experiencing that threat?
Brain break moment. All right, I know that I can go deep way fast. So let's just take a pause here to take a deep breath in and let it out. And listen while I let you know that this episode is brought to you by me, Megan, and my Positive Parenting Class Pass. Positive Parenting Class Pass are 6 simple positive parenting classes to kickstart your positive parenting journey. Those classes include Positive Parenting 101, which is a class that is just designed to give you the first steps in what positive parenting is and what it is not. Second class is Emotional Validation. In this class, we dig into how can we show up to have your child feel seen and heard in their lived experience. The third class is Setting Boundaries, all about communicating, enforcing, and allowing testing of your secure and consistent and firm boundaries. The fourth class is a class called Ending Entitlement. Inside of this class, we dig into how we are showing up using tools of entitlement and how we can start to release those tools and begin practicing tools of empowerment and choice. And we know that what we put down, they're going to pick up. The fifth class is a class all about natural consequences. This is a class that gets very clear, and you'll walk away knowing what an imposed consequence is, what a logical consequence is, and most importantly, how to begin utilizing natural consequences so your children begin learning from their lived experience. And the final class is a class all about apologizing. I like to say that connection is the most skipped over step and recovery is the least utilized step. So in that step, you'll start to learn how to show up and use impactful and effective apologies so that your child knows that you see them and hear them and care about them. If you are looking to begin your journey today, then I highly encourage you go to bekindcoaching.com/classpass and dig into the classes starting today. As my free gift, you will receive Raising Respectful Kids, which is my 3-part video series all about how to stop focusing on adding on more decorations to your child and to you and to your relationship, and instead starting to reinforce and build a solid and secure foundation together. I can't wait to hear all of your amazing wins from the steps that you take inside of Positive Parenting Class Pass. All right, ready to get back to our episode? Before we get back, let's take one more deep breath together. And take a deep breath in and let it out. And let's go.
Moving into the maladaptive ways, right? If we're not in contact with the direct threat, the freeze response can slip into becoming maladaptive and inhibiting or limiting. You may become immobilized from any action, where we go into shutdown, where we just become frozen. This is like when someone is asking you or putting pressure on you to make a decision, and you're like, I can't even think about my thoughts. That's our brains kicking in and saying like, turn off. Like, that's a threat, turn off. We experience it when we become stuck. I hear this with parents like, I'm just stuck, I don't know what to do. And so we just lock into a freeze response. And sometimes we think that the freeze response means that someone doesn't care, or they're not listening, or they're not tuned in. And really what the freeze response is actually the opposite of that. They are hyper tuned in. They're hyper aroused. Think of a cat stalking its prey. When it's paused and in freeze, it's trying to blend in so then it can go for the attack. It's trying to not be noticed so then it can pounce. Think about when we were playing hide and go seek. Though we weren't moving, though we weren't talking, though our observable behavior would say that we weren't doing anything, our internal world was lit up. We were like hyper tuned in. We could know where that person was coming and how far away they were from us. And we could tell when they were getting close to us, right? We were tuned in so much. So we can observe a freeze response in someone by them feeling panicked, or when we are feeling panicked. That panicked, I'm panicked, but I can't move, most likely freeze response. Feelings of overwhelmed, numbed out. If we space out the experience of feeling frozen, like I can't make a decision, I can't make a move, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to stay right here. They literally cannot move. They don't have words. Their eyes are still. They can also experience it by shutting down, disengaging, going to the room, being left alone. Perhaps their mind just goes blank, like, oop, nothing there. Sometimes we can interpret that as they don't care. But again, in this, when we are aware of that this is happening because they are perceiving a threat, then we start to say, like, it's not that they don't care, it's that they care so much that their system is flooded. They start to have an urge to hide and isolate themselves. This is where we don't ask for help. We retreat from the spaces of support because we are frozen. We are so far past, we're just like, I just hope that this goes away. I just want this to go away. This feels so overwhelming to me. I can't even navigate it. I just want it to go away. I hope it loses interest in me. This person may become verbally unresponsive. I think about when I become so overwhelmed that I stop texting my best friends back because I'm so flipped, I'm overrun, I'm overflooded. That casual conversation, I can't even engage in. And so text messages gets missed over and over and over again. Someone who's engaged in a freeze response too, maybe saying things like, I don't know. They're going to repeat, I don't know, over and over again. It's because their brain, their logic part of their brain, that green part of their brain, the executive part of their brain is turned off because they are in a freeze response. They are stunned. The woman was too stunned to speak, like that TikTok trend. They may become apathetic, like lose interest in it, right? The purpose of it is to disassociate, lose interest, or have the thing lose interest in us. So we become apathetic. We just simply don't care anymore. We disengage. It may become the feelings of helplessness and that they can't make up their mind. They don't know where to go. So they're just startled. They're just stunned. Think of deer in headlights. It's important, again, just as I said, in every response, this is a response to the perceived threat. A person who is doing this is not giving you a hard time. A person who is doing this is not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. And this is the time for you to do your part. Be present, attune, resonate, and build trust. And failure to do that, your part, ruptures the trust. Someone who is engaged in a freeze response, when around more threats, will go on down that cycle. So what do we do now that we've experienced, or we become aware, like, hey, maybe someone in front of us is feeling stressed or navigating through this? Perhaps we can identify when they're in a fight, flight, or maybe we see them running away from us, or just like can't even make up their mind. We can act as gasoline by adding pressure. Come on, make up your mind. Come on, come on, come on. Let's go, right? If someone is already in shutdown, adding pressure is just like adding gasoline, making those quick, jerky movements, having a loud voice, adding punishments, trying to get them to admit to what they did, threats, and adding on promises that you cannot keep. Those are all ways that act as gasoline. And I hope by now you're noticing that the gasoline and the extinguisher are the same sides on each and every stress response. Because that's where I say, are you adding on more stress to someone who is already stressed out? Are you adding on more stress, or are we acting and moving into being a support? So on the flip, to be an extinguisher to that fire inside of them, we aim to create safety. And for that, that means finding ways for us, the person who is not engaged in the threat, to become the safe person for them. Another extinguisher is to regulate our nervous system so that we can help co-regulate with their nervous system. Offering connection, offering spaces to say, I see you, I hear you. Practicing power with strategies, so ways to get on the same page as them so that we do not inadvertently become the threat. We practice patience in the moments where we feel the least amount of patience. Like, think about leaving to go somewhere and everything goes your way. All of the lights are green, all of the traffic is gone. It's like so fun. And you like turn down the windows, you're like, this is the easiest drive ever. That's not the place that we practice patience. We strengthen patience because there's no patience needed for that, right? If it's easy, if it's in flow, there's no resistance, we don't need patience. So this is a mistake because sometimes we think that we're practicing patience in those moments. So that then when we hit red lights or we're running 5 minutes late or we're in traffic, we're met with all these opportunities of resistance that require patience, require us to slow down. This is how we can start to find that balance of being in flow with or being in resistance to. And knowing that the exact moments where we feel our patience being tested is the exact moment that we are strengthening our patience, much like weightlifting. If we only ever, I was just thinking, specifically about weightlifting. I was watching this show with Jason on Netflix called, what's it called? Oh, Marriage at First Sight. It's a ridiculously trashy TV reality show. And they were like introducing all of the characters. And there was one character, I call them characters, they were real people. But one of the characters on the show was like showing his workout routine. And he was like a big, like beefy guy, like doing his workout routine. And he was like using like, I think 5-pound weights or 10-pound weights. And Jason, who's a personal trainer, was like, that's just for show. Like he can lift harder than that. Like that's not hard. And I thought, oh, that's funny, because it's to someone who doesn't know, they just see someone lifting weights and being like, wow, he's working out. And to Jason, he's like, nah, that's all for show. Like, he's not doing anything. He just has his shirt off and he's lifting weights for the camera. And I thought, yes, so much like this is like, there he was, the purpose wasn't to work out. The purpose was just to show off weights for the camera to give the illusion of working out, but he wasn't strengthening anything. Same with patience. Like we get into spaces that bring the resistance so that we can strengthen the muscle. Another way to be an extinguisher is to build our own social emotional skills. The more we invest in diversifying our social emotional skills and tools and become practiced in them, the higher the rate of return, because now we have those skills and tools to share. And we learn those often by asking for help and support, for valuing the relationship to say, hey, I'm meeting this resistance. I'm finding myself engaged in my own stress responses, and I need to get into spaces of help and support so that I can start to distinguish what are the tigers versus what are the cats. And then how are we showing up in maladaptive and adaptive ways to navigate through this? This is hard work. This is work well invested in, because this is work that you're experiencing with your children, helping them navigate their stressful moments, helping them navigate by becoming aware of what their behavior is communicating to you. So in closing, let's consider. Again, I've said this past episodes, and I'll say it in this episode, these questions are going to stay the same. I'm going to invite you to ask yourself, when do you notice the signs of stress? Are you learning through this series? Are you becoming aware of your own observable behaviors in this? Are we aware of others' observable behaviors of this? On the flip, when do you notice signs of safety? How do you know when things are de-escalated and calm? What does that feel like? What are the observable behaviors? And finally, we can ask ourselves, what habits support your sense of safety? And what habits support your sense of stress? I am proud of you for being here. I said it last week. This is the unsexy side of this work. And it's hard. It's looking behind, looking underneath, and getting to the root of something. But it's so valuable because every single human on the planet Earth, every single human has and will have some sorts of these responses. And the children that you are engaging with, they have these responses. And learning how to become aware and to be acting as a support while they are experiencing it is totally invaluable. And if you've been listening along and taking notes, I always love to see it. You can share your thoughts and takeaways with me by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. You can share your thoughts and takeaways on social media and tag me. And you can even share your thoughts and takeaways inside of our dedicated posts inside of our Facebook community, Positive Parenting with Megan Ford. Thank you for being here and tuning in and listening to the end. My mission in life is to help support parents in feeling supported and empowered in doing this work. This podcast, my Facebook community, and my programs and book club all help parents work through the phases of awareness, education, and practice. If you are ready for the next step, I highly encourage you to check out ClassPass and dig into the Connections class on emotional validation. Inside of this class, it'll help you balance your parenting toolbox by helping you connect with your child in a way that helps them feel safe, seen, and heard. You can get started today at bekindcoaching.com/ClassPass. And as my free gift to you, you will get the 3-part video series, Raising Respectful Kids, as well. It helps you learn how to show up in powerful ways to get out of the detail work and into building in that strong foundation. I am proud of you for being here. I am proud of you for being kind to yourself. I am proud of you for being kind to your family, and I am proud of you for being kind to this community. And I cannot wait to see you next week. Bye, friends.